What's going on, guys? It's Lady B. I'm back with another Town Hall 13 strategy guide, and this is one you are not going to want to miss. Now, this is an air raid that essentially requires no spells for the air portion of the attack. So get ready to learn more about the TDH and why it's such a powerful attack. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more Clash of Clans content. Before we head into the strategy guide, I just want to give a huge shout out to TDH, who this particular attack is named after. It started back when he was in Town Hall 9, and he's been able to actually manipulate this strategy to work for every Town Hall level moving up, now including Town Hall 13. So very exciting stuff, because it is a very powerful strategy when used properly. So let's talk about what a TDH is. A TDH is essentially a queen charge LaLoonion, where you're keeping your queen shooting buildings for as long as possible. And I'm talking about a minute 30 queen charges, even up to 2-minute queen charges before you actually drop your LaLoonion. And with that brings this incredible feat of essentially not even needing spells for your LaLoonion portion. So crazy stuff, things that we're not used to seeing necessarily with queen charges. It's going to have you stepping beyond what you're accustomed to doing, but can bring you some amazing and great value. The biggest threat to your TDH would be losing out your queen or your healers. That is the basic component of this, so be sure that you're using these spells essentially for your queen charge to keep that going. And be mindful of any outskirt defenses, any outlying defenses that could potentially threaten your healers. Look for ATs that might target them, multi-ITs that could target them and pose a threat, and potentially bring in a couple of loons along the way to pick those off as you keep your queen charge going through. But let's talk about this troop composition, the basic components, and we'll see in some of these raids how you can actually adjust it for the particular type of base. As you can see here, we have the basic troop composition for this raid. Now, more times than not, you can use the standard composition, but you might want to adjust based on the layout of the base and what value you're getting out of it. Overall, you're always going to need those 5 healers for your queen charge. Wall breakers you can do give or take based on the value of your entry and what you're getting moving into the base, but 9 is typically a standard to power you through. Now, when it comes to the LaLoonion portion, you're going to be bringing 1 hound. That is all you need to do the tanking for this particular portion of the raid. 22 minions, definitely you need to have those minions. That's something you should not limit on this particular raid. This is a LaLoonion. You need the backup of those minions to actually do the cleanup, because time is going to be of the essence when you're doing such a long queen charge. And for the loons, about 22 loons is usually pretty good, but again, you can change it up depending on what is needed within the raid. But overall, this is going to be your typical composition here. For your CC, you're going to be bringing a Yeti blimp, and this is going to be housing, of course, the Yetis, a Valk, and Barbs. And this is ultimately to create the pathing for the queen charge portion. This is going to help funnel her up. I have a great guide on the Yeti blimp as a means of funneling, so make sure to check that out if you want to know a little bit more about that. And when it comes to the actual spells, you're going to be bringing 5 rages. Again, these rages, these spells in general, specifically to be used for the majority of this queen charge. Now, that's not to say that you might not want to use some spells for the LaLoonion portion, but plan on using the majority of these spells for your queen charge. So the rage is going to get her a lot of value, and those 2 freezes will also help hold off some key defenses. You might need to worry about those scatter shots. Multi-targeting ITs, especially with the healers, air defenses, archer towers, those freezes will definitely come in handy. And then, of course, a poison spell for the CC troops. And then, of course, you might need a couple of cleanup troops to go along the way to help out, or even to help funnel the queen up. So we have 2 wizards in this particular composition as well. So let's talk a little bit about this strategy in action now. And we're actually taking a look at some Legends League hits and war attacks. So really, this is versatile no matter what you're doing. And you can see here, TDH starts it off with that queen charge. In the top of the base here, we've got that Coco Loon coming in place. This is to protect your healers. This is potentially going to pick up some traps along the way and do some tanking for those units to keep them safe. He drops another one in because that first one did not go far enough through the base, but here you see it does pick up that black bomb a little bit further through and keeps that safe. Now, this is also very smart because he knows his queen can't actually reach that town hall, so it essentially serves as a Coco Loon for the Yeti blimp that he's going to be sending in towards that town hall. So when you're doing Yeti blimps or working with healers in general, always think about bringing those extra loons with you. Obviously you have them here, but you should be using Coco Loons to help protect and pick up traps along the way. So the queen's working her way down. He's able to set the funnel for the king, so he gets the value from the queen where he wants to start charging her off at the 930 side of the base here. Successful Yeti blimp placement right past that town hall to take out that chamber, which does allow the funneling for the queen. But let's take a quick look. You can see here that queen has a beautiful access here. He got a nice juncture break that allows her easy pathing through from the chamber she was already locked in into this 9 o'clock side of the base. But he also uses this freeze spell, as you see the CC coming out, to hold off the single IT and the AT and the Grand Warden Tower, all nasty defenses that would easily take this queen down. So he has to force through both of those freezes to keep this queen alive, but it was worth the value. So never skimp on these spells that you're using. And here we can see as well, he sends in the next set of wall breakers to go in for that second layer break, pushing the queen a little bit further into the base. But he picks up a trap along the way. This is why he only used one wall breaker going through the rage, so he didn't send everything in. Once he knew he picked that up, he could send the rest in. It was slightly delayed here, so they can safely come through, get that wall break, and work a little bit further through the base. And look how far they go, opening up a third layer where the queen has access fully to head towards the core of the base. And with that, just about a minute on the clock left over, he gets this LaLoonion going. And this is what I'm talking about. These are massive queen charges, lengthy, time extensive, but you know you're picking up the value. So the queen works in, minions are dropped right behind the LaLoonion. They're doing all that cleanup work, working along the outskirts, and he has used every single spell already on this queen charge. So nothing left over here that you're getting to see for the LaLoonion. It was the sheer force and power of that queen doing the work. She comes in, that third layer wall break gives her access to the scatter shot, that last remaining scatter shot, which would have dealt a lot of damage to the loons that they wouldn't have been able to actually withstand unless the warden ability kept them safely through. It was good timing where he had it, not that it was focused on them, but you do have to keep that in mind, that if there is any threat to your LaLoonion portion, it could be a scatter shot, and that's where you're going to save that warden ability for. But he creates nice pathing with that. It was narrowed out and not a lot left here, but made very easy work of it. Tons of loons left over, those minions all left over, and that queen left over here in the very end. So this is another example of TDH doing his strategy in his Legends League hits. And in this particular one, it's not about using no spells for the LaLoonion. He actually has some because of the value he's picking up with the queen and what's left over for the LaLoonion portion. But we're going to see a crazy extensive queen charge that lasts about 2 minutes long. So we're kicking off at that 3-minute mark. The queen heads in, and you can see while she's underway, he sends in that Yeti blimp for some second layer defenses, which is going to help navigate her pathing a little bit more, keep her out of any risk of those defenses that are further inside that can still reach her and the healers. So it is all about protecting your queen and your healers, thinking about where you're placing her, where you're navigating her, and what could potentially pick them off, and how you can solve that problem of eliminating those various threats to them. So as the CC comes out, obviously poisoning it up, trying to make quick work of this kill of the CC as she's working through. But he's so patient with this. He doesn't worry about the time. He knows he has complete control of what this queen is doing. So don't fear if you see ice golems coming out. Don't panic. Take it on. Let your queen do what she's going to do and keep going. King lines up the funnel here. Again, think about the value that you're creating with your pathing when you're just using your king alone to help funnel up this queen. And we've got the start of the wall breaks, and he gets a beautiful initial double layer wall break heading in. This queen has perfect access, and he still has 7 wall breakers left over on this raid, and the queen is essentially in the core of this base with this particular opening. King working along the outskirts as the queen lines up to work a little bit deeper into the core of the base. Where she's positioned right now is perfect because everything is reachable for her on either side of the one narrow chamber, and we're talking about big value early on, taking down the eagle, pathing up, taking on those X-bows. Now the scatter shot's obviously something to worry about as you're bringing your Lalo in, but there's more power to her and to keep her moving along. And I've got to add, we are now at the minute 18 mark, and this is still going. So the next set of wall breakers come in, push that queen a little bit further in where she can reach the scatter shots, and now she has full access to turn back around as he brings in his LaLoonion and offer additional support here. So as the queen continues taking on the first scatter shot, we're going to see her backtrack, move her way in, but the LaLoonion comes in just around that minute mark here, and that means we have just seen a 2-minute long queen charge before deploying the actual air raid. This is something which is almost never done anytime we talk about doing queen charges with hybrid or Lalo or hogs. You always want to be in somewhere around that minute 40, minute 30 mark. And he's going as long as 2 minutes with this queen charge. Now, unfortunately, the queen doesn't take that wall break that was opened up for her with beautiful access to the scatter shot, but she already did some powerful work moving in, taking on the initial scatter shot, and even coming in here with her ability still intact and taking on that single IT. But this is where you can see the difference of why you might want to hold on to some of those spells to use for your LaLoonion instead of having to use it solely for your queen charge, is because he's able to use it to power through the town hall section, obviously keeping his loons safe with the warden ability, but he's got that last freeze to hold off the scatter shot where his queen didn't necessarily come in initially and back around and take it out. But the queen works her way in to come in for the assist. We had those minions spread around to make this quick and easy cleanup for the back end after the queen had done so much work. So one more breakdown of this particular strategy that actually focuses on a variation of the attack. So we get to see how troops can be used a little bit differently. And it's in order to actually take advantage of some flaws in this base. So I absolutely love this. And yes, it is a flawed base, but if you see these bases, take advantage of it. This is a good lesson why you do not leave your CC on the outside, especially with sneaky goblins in the mix now. And that's why we see the sneaky goblins here. That variation added in, reducing the amount of wall breakers needed, but also you don't need many wall breakers with the shape of this base. As you can see here, we've got some nice long open chambers where a queen can walk in and go for days. This is a great base for a starter who wants to do this queen charge LaLoonion. If you see these nice long channels to move your queen in, try to take advantage of these. This worked out really well for Kelly here. But let's talk about a couple more flaws on this. This has a walkable town hall. I mean, we also have the walkable IT, which the queen actually doesn't need to do. Kelly brings in some loons to take it out, but a walkable town hall, that is a huge no-no. Such big value on this one that the queen can get walking here. Kelly bringing in the blimp and then working the queen in. She absolutely took advantage of this. And it's not to say that we don't see walkable town halls. We do see them often on the outside, but it's so much value that this allows for the queen to work inside this base as well. And there we go. We've got those, we've got the sneaky goblins that just wreak havoc on that CC, completely obliterating it and limiting anything needed in it. The loons coming in to actually work their way to take out that multi IT and the queen is on her way and all set to go straight for that town hall. But this is where we actually get to see the push through with the blimp coming in. A couple loons dropped just to pick up any possible traps along the way and tank for that AD, which unfortunately it didn't, but the blimp ultimately got through exactly where it needed to be, coming in on that scatter shot and working its way in to try and take on some more of the defenses. Now, it doesn't get as far as getting the multi-IT, but it knocks out that entire chamber here as you see the queen crossing by. And that means everything that was in that section there that would have been a threat to the queen or the healers themselves, those expos, the scatter shot, are no longer an issue. So a smart use of that Yeti blimp in that quadrant. We've got the wall breakers coming in here just to open up the chamber for the queen. And again, big value on this. Queen has great access working inside the space and reaching everything, including that eagle. And for the chamber along the outside, where you can see just next to the king, he's working along the outskirts, that chamber that hooks around that outside edge there, this is where we actually get to see some loons brought in place that would necessarily target the healers, but if you add in your loons, like a surgical addition here, you can see Kelly drops in that initial loon for the AT and knows that more have to come in, because as soon as this queen takes a far enough step forward, the AT is going to lose focus on the queen and go on to the healers, and that is never what you want. So in order to keep these raids going, always think about what defenses might eventually target your healer. You can also limit some of what's being targeted onto the queen as well by that addition of those loons. So very smart here. And also it's a means of actually taking down these defenses that are just out of range of the queen. And the king had done a ton of tanking, but the queen is actually doing the majority of the tanking now to get that done. So minions are added in behind. Now, not all of them. And as you can see, the hound was never brought in, not needed for this portion, just for a couple of defenses that were far enough away that the loons can take on, but to come in where the queen originally wasn't able to take out and where the blimp wasn't originally take out. So it all kind of comes full circle here. The power of this hound and the loons working in to the scatter shot, the multi-IT, and a bunch of Teslas here. Very smart and very key to this. And you've got that RC that also works through with your LaLoonion. Keep that in mind. This is the big push that helps your LaLoonion, is working your RC in with them. More times than not, that's what you're going to use, because your queen charge should be easily maintained within your king funneling for her and for your Yeti blimp to help create that funnel as well. So you'll get that extra push and power with using your RC behind your LaLoonion. So again, a huge shout out to TDH, whose attack this is actually a namesake of. And I can tell you firsthand, Max even said it, this was the first way he actually got into air attack. So if you've been hesitant to do air, definitely try this strategy. It can be done from Town Hall 9 now all the way up to Town Hall 13, and it's going to help you get good with your queen charges. It makes for good practice. And a huge shout out over to the guys and girls at Insomniacs. You can take a look at some more of their attacks at the end of this video to showcase the power of the TDH. If you're looking for a clan in your Town Hall 11, 12, or 13, definitely check out Insomniacs. Lots that you can learn there from TDH and his gang. So take a look in the description below for some of the links, or you can visit them in game and send them a request, but make sure you try to apply on their Discord server. Best way to go about it. Until next time, this is Lady B. I'll catch you guys later.